Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Grand Cayman. We are here this morning in the 152 again, but this one is, whoopsie daisy, look at that. This one is the JP Logistics 152. So it's a little bit different today. I had forgotten, honestly forgotten about this airplane yesterday when I flew. So we are ready to get going. Let me get myself situated here. This is, talk about a cool time to do this. We are going to fly over to Cayman Brac today. So this should be a good one. This is, let's see, 1013. Let's see, altimeter, we'll get that set. Alright, I guess without further ado, rotating beacon on. Mixture rich. Carpy is cold. Master and battery switch is on. Avionics master switch is on. And let's put our feet on the toe brakes. Definitely the first flight of the day, so we got to prime the engine here. 3 shots of prime will usually do it. Let's crack the throttle. Have a quick look outside. Make sure there's nobody out there to kill
Clear
or
prop.
maim. And we'll embarrass ourselves. And we'll turn the fuel on.
Clear prop.
And then we'll do it again. That didn't really seem like wanting to start, did it? Oil pressure is good. Oil temperature is pretty low. Wonder if we didn't ball this plane up yesterday, did we? Just makes me a little nervous that the engine really didn't seem like it wanted to start. Alright, transponder squawk altitude. Do want to put in the Grand Cayman VOR, which is 115.6, so we'll put that in the backup here. Wait, that's the familiar with this airplane. Which is a cheap excuse for not seeing that these are comms frequencies and not nav frequencies. Alright, I'm going to lean the mixture here for taxi. And let's get out the... Do we have a taxiways chart? We do. Looks like we're going to be taxiing out taxiway Delta, I guess, and then we'll be on our way. Let's see what our direction of flight is going to be. It's going to be about 078. So we'll set the VOR. And we are flying a radial today, so we do want a from flag. I do not believe Well, actually, this is a pretty easy one, isn't it? So, well, I'll talk about that a little bit more once we get going. Let's release the parking brake. Let's turn on the nav and strobe lights. Turn on the taxi light. Trim is a little bit nose up, which is fine. Don't mind it being there. Also don't mind having the windows open a little bit when it's pretty hot out. So we're going to be taking off from Delta. We're definitely not going to have to taxi back here. This being the mighty Cessna 152. And I'm hoping there's a hold short line, and there is. The reason I was hoping there was a hold short line is because if there isn't, that means I've probably passed it already. We're going to do a better look at this airport at some point, but this is the runway 26 version of this airport, Roberts International. Looking pretty good. Alright, let's do a quick flight control check here. Up on that side, down on that side, up on that side, down on that side. Flaps are all the way down and indicating. All the way down to that side, all the way down on that side. Coming back up and indicating. All the way up on that side, all the way up on that side. Elevator is moving properly. Alright, let's go. Mixture rich. I'm going to put on the parking brake in addition to the toe brakes. So let's get a good view here of what we're doing. Click this off real quick so you can see. Alright, let's run it up to 1700. Alright. Left magneto, good drop, back to both. Right magneto, good drop, within 50 RPM of one another, back to both. Carb heat, good drop, carb heat off. Alright, let's see here. Suction is good in the drive row, oil pressure is good, oil temperature is still kind of low, fuel is good. Balance. Let's bring the throttle back, and we'll bring throttle to idle. Throttle idle check is good. All you want to know on the throttle idle check, all you want to hear is a nice smooth running engine. Bring it back to about 1200 RPM. Release the parking brake. Transponder squawk altitude, and we're ready to go. It's runway 8, so it should be pretty much straight out. And what we're going to do is I'm going to center this localizer needle. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to run it about 78. Alright, so. Looking good. I don't see any traffic. Check the check ForeFlight. I don't see any traffic on ForeFlight either. Grand Cayman traffic, Cessna 4753 X-ray taking off from the 08 straight out departure to the east, Grand Cayman. Alright, so we're rolling here. That windsock's looking pretty dead. A little bit of a wind, perhaps coming across the runway. Alright, and the heading indicator is going to be fine for that runway number. We can tell Alright, get ourselves on centerline. Mixture rich, carb heat is cold, flaps are set, takeoff power is coming in. Takeoff power is set, engines producing full RPMs, airspeed is alive, accelerating normally. 65 knots, and we are flying. Beautiful view there of the airport. And I think this is just a sharp looking livery. Boy, we are going to be straight into that sun. I was looking forward to a nice morning flight, but I don't know that this is quite what I was hoping for. Alright. I mean, if that's not a sharp looking airplane, I don't know what is. I really don't. Alright, let's come back to that 078 heading. We got that needle centered here. And this is the Cayman Islands. So 1,500 feet AGL. We do not have controller, I'm quite sure. I didn't even look, to be honest. So, looking pretty good. 2,000, climbing 3,000. Temperature's up, that's good. Yeah, we're gonna be dead into the sun the entire time. And quite planned for that. So, another tool that I've added to my flight sim arsenal today is FS Realistic. I'm sure you heard the clear prop. I certainly did. And we're getting up to 3,000 here. Boy, he's dead into the sun, the heading that we want to be at. 50 feet below our cruise altitude, we'll start pushing the nose over. Bringing the power back. 2400. There used to be this little program for Prepared. It was called Real Trim. And what it did was, because the way we trim in the simulator is really kind of, I mean, I guess for a trim button it works, which is what I use on this airplane, for example. You can see we're getting pushed a little bit to the right of course here, so I'm going to correct that. Also start leaning the mixture. I don't know if they put any GT gauge in this airplane. How would you feel if you saw your pilot looking around the cockpit wondering what was there? Anyway, so the way we trim in the simulator is somewhat counterintuitive to how you trim in real life. Because in real life, unless you have a trim button on your, like electric trim on your yoke, which this airplane doesn't have, but I use it anyway. I'll explain that in a minute. But what you do to actually trim an airplane in real life is you hold the pitch attitude that you want, and then you trim off the force that's working against you using the trim wheel. Put your hand on the trim wheel, roll it until you don't feel any pull or push on the yoke anymore, and then you're good to go. And real trim worked pretty much like that. It was great because what you did was you had a button. So you would hold the pitch attitude and press that button, and the trim would roll in to hold that pitch attitude. Which is really pretty neat. Let's go. Let's put some pitot heat on here, just in case. Tell me that doesn't work. So in this airplane where everything works, it's kind of the whole point. The pitot heat doesn't work. So this is what I like to refer to as Caribbean VFR. And what that means is it's pretty much VFR. Actually, I think technically would be. Well, I mean, because you can see through the clouds. But no, this is not VFR. I mean, you'd really have to get into what airspace this is. If it's class golf, it might be. But realistically speaking, this is not. not VFR. So the reason I use a trim button, electric trim button, even though this airplane doesn't have one, is because my airplane does. And one of the things that I like to use Microsoft Flight Simulator for is muscle memory, or brain memory. I don't know how you would put it. It's not really muscle, but I like to kind of recreate as much as I can what I experience in my actual airplane. And I think if we don't get through this relatively shortly, what I will do is climb up above it. Lean the mixture here little by little, waiting for the engine to kind of hesitate a little bit. You hear that drop in RPM? That's how you know you've reached max peak EGT temperature, and then you just push the yoke back in a little bit. So we are IFR equipped, and I am IFR certified. I'm actually flying my instruments right now because it's very easy in situations like this to kind of not take it real seriously and wind up coming out of the bottom of the cloud upside down. So we will continue along. This looks like it's kind of low level cumulus buildups that are I can tell when it starts doing that Real Environment X is redoing the weather, and you'll see. So this is the only drawback to Real Environment X weather force from Microsoft Flight Simulator is when it clears the weather and re-injects the weather. Number one, it goes clear for a second, and number two, the performance gets pretty bad for a brief period of time. So wasn't really expecting to fly IFR this morning. Good practice, though. So FS Realistic, I really don't know much about. It didn't seem like there was much setting up to do. It looked like I didn't bother reading the documentation, because why would you do that? But it looked like it's more about turning things off that you don't want, as opposed to turning things on that you do want. I'm not sure I like the clear prop guy, but that's alright. Boat down there. Keeps teasing us like we're about to come out of this, and we never do. Almost lead me to believe that it would be a good idea to either climb or descend. A little bit the weather here. I expect the wind is coming out of the north, and it is. Well, actually no, it's basically dead at us. Yeah, we're definitely not coming out of this. Alright, in which case, let's climb. I don't mind mucking it along a little bit. In that situation, but it's not where I want to live in a single engine piston over open water. And even climbing up through this is disorienting. Or disorientating, as the Brits would say. I don't have to get the clear air, I just want to be in. This is already looking better. Doesn't it feel right now like we're pointed straight up in the air? It feels that way to me, like looking at the picture, the sight picture out of the nose. That's why God created instruments. Yeah, we're starting to come out of it. See, that's our actual pitch altitude, basically level. This airplane doesn't really have a lot of get up and go. See, even this is just better. The wind's a little bit better at 55 too, should be. A couple of knots, but every couple of knots help with this airplane. So, that's a little better. Up and out of it here. So now, 50 feet below our cruise altitude, push the nose over. Pull that throttle back until we hear a distinct change in engine sound, which means we're pretty much where we want to be. That sound trick works pretty well. And what I mean is just level off, you know, hold the airplane level with the yoke, and then just pull the power back until you hear the sound change. And it's a decent bet you're going to be at approximately your desired power setting, which we are. One of the things I'm thinking about doing, you can change the time period at which REX injects the weather, and I think I'm going to change that to, right now it's at 10 minutes, and I think I'm going to change it to a half hour, so that I only experience that weather change every 30 minutes or so, rather. Because, I mean, to me, it doesn't, you know, I'm not really I want it to be realistic, the weather, but I don't think I guess if you're in quickly changing weather conditions, you would want it to be a little bit closer together. Okay, let's move the mixture again a little bit. Make sure we're at 24. And you want a precise throttle setting because how you can know if your throttle has changed. Or if your RPMs have changed, rather. So we're waiting again for that change. Just pulling out the red lever, waiting for that RPM to drop. And you hear that? See, it dropped 50 RPM. Just push it back in. See, and then we're right back to 2400. So if you've got a precise throttle setting, then you are going to know when your RPM changes. If you just set it at, you know, I'm going to set it about 2400. You might set it at 2425. You might set it at 37 or 23. You know, 75, 2350, 2450, and then you hear it. You think you hear a change in the engine sound, and you look over, but you can't tell whether it's changed because you don't know what your throttle setting was. It's good to be precise about it. Fuel quality looking good, oil temperature looking good, oil pressure looking good, gyros, suction is good. Amps are looking good. So boy, is that a beautiful airplane. Love that color scheme. So I bought these airports a little while ago, and I just haven't checked them out. And I've been wanting to do a morning flight for a while, like an early morning flight, like a legit morning flight. And much to my dog's chagrin, today is that day. Pretty much sort of the same type of flight as I did yesterday, only a little less interesting because there's no islands to look at. I actually didn't realize that Cayman Brac was so far away from Grand Cayman. I mean, it's 87 nautical miles, which is a decent distance. At least for a Cessna 152 it is. Cessna 152, everything's a decent distance away. For a Cessna 152, everything's a decent distance away. So, get my joystick ready for the airport review once we get there. Now, this is one thing, a couple things I'm thinking about right now. Number one, I don't like that. That's a result of being lazy. And number two, I was just thinking about the fact that I almost kind of got in and didn't really worry about whether there was a VOR and whether the, you know, obviously this airplane without GPS. I've got ForeFlight on my iPad in front of me, which is cool. I'm going to stop tolerating that altitude deviation. Fix it. But I almost didn't really look to see whether there was a VOR and a way to navigate using the equipment in the airplane. And I'm glad I did, because I don't know about your tolerance for risk. You know, real world, there would be a few things I'd be thinking about with this flight. Number one, make sure I've got a way to navigate. Number two, make sure I've got plenty of fuel to fly the hour out and hour back. And legally you would need 30 minutes of reserve fuel, so you would legally need 2.5 hours of fuel on board to make this flight. Well, no, actually that's a big fat lie. Legally you would need 1.5 hours, because the VFR fuel requirement is that you have enough fuel to make it from your point of departure to your intended point of landing, which makes sense. You got to be able to make it to where you're going, and to an alternate if necessary, which in this case would be Little Cayman, which would be probably what, 10 minutes? That's 70 minutes worth of fuel. And to fly for 30 minutes thereafter. The gyration of the altimeter, what that is yes, that's the re-injection of the weather there. But with these clouds here, you can't see those islands, and I would have an uneasy feeling being out here over open water and not being able to see my destination. I would not be particularly happy about that. I would not be particularly happy about that. Be a bit nervous. I was talking yesterday about how you know, Murphy's Law in aviation is pretty strong. Murphy's Law being that whatever can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. And as the Irish would say, me being an Irishman, as the Irish would say, Murphy was an optimist. So, on a flight like this, I would want to cover all my bases. Which for me would mean, so the way I would flight plan this flight in real life would be enough fuel to get out and back and fly for an hour. I mean, I would pretty much take as much fuel as I could get away with and still get off the ground. Because 3 hours of fuel, what is it, 17 aside in this airplane. What's in pounds? Oh, okay. That's 12 aside. Yeah, so 24 gallons. Yeah, true, 48 gallons. No, not even 48. 24 gallons of fuel. I'm pretty sure that's usable. 24 gallons of usable fuel. So figure you burn an 8 gallons an hour. Probably less than that, but I like the fuel plan on the pessimistic side of things. So I, in real life, would go full tanks to this for this flight, even if it meant I had to wear lighter shoes. Forgot I had flipped that open at the start of the flight and didn't open the window. So let's start looking at the destination airport here. It is Charles Kirkconnell International Airport on Cayman, Brac. Transition altitude is 17,000 feet. Latest weather is VFR, winds are 0406 knots. Airport elevation is 5 feet. Excuse me. Tower 118.4, approach 120.2. I'm gonna put approach 120.2. No. In the backup. Why are you doing that? Why are you being annoying? It's our only choice to go this way. Just running up through it. Yeah, look at that. So we got a radio frequency set. Alright, let's have a look at the runway. Runway 09er. And it's 6,000 feet by 148 feet. That's a pretty decent sized runway. For diagram. Alright. Cool. So, I wonder what Jeppesen has for these. This airport. Is it on an approach plan? Yeah, Jeff's got a nice chart for this. It's really messed up. Okay, here we go. Birds in the vicinity of the airport. Jeff gives you much more detail than the FAA does. See the parking spots, general aviation parking, that's right there. Alright. So you can see where in the world we are. Cool. So, would you guys like to do math? Alright, our altitude is 5,500 feet. We want to lose 4,500 feet of altitude. So we want to be at 1,000 feet for traffic pattern altitude, even though this is really going to be a straight-in approach. I don't like doing long straight-in approaches without vertical guidance. So even VFR. So what I'd like to do is get down to traffic pattern altitude and intercept the final approach glide slope, or glide path. I'm not going to have a glide slope, but intercept the final approach glide path from below. Just makes life easier. And I like things being easy. So we have 30 nautical miles to go. Our ground speed is, let's call it 90 knots. So we're covering 1.5 miles a minute. So how many miles at 500 feet a minute is it going to take us to lose 4,500 feet? Well, it's going to take us 9 minutes. And at 1.5 miles a minute, that's going to take us 13.5 miles to do. And seeing as we want to be at 1,000 feet, 3 miles from the airport, it seemed to me about 17 miles where we want to start our descent. I'm going to call it 20, and that way what we can do is get down there nice and settled and intercept the glide slope. The glide path, pardon me. I do apologize. So if anybody has watched this entire video, first of all, why? Why have you done it? Second of all, thank you. I don't know about you guys, but I get as much satisfaction out of doing something like this as I do out of a 737 flight. I get this airplane on the ground. Cayman Brac traffic, Cessna 4753 X-ray is 25 miles to the west, inbound runway 9er, Cayman Brac. I get as much satisfaction. If I get this airplane on the ground, a nice landing, a nice planned out descent, we've got our descent planned. It will make me happy. It's gotta be boring as anything to watch, I would guess, but to round out your boredom, I like to try and add some of my limited aviation knowledge. To the video. The temperature or pressure good for the quantity, line both sides, balanced. I just find stuff like this entertaining, really good. Particularly, you know, even more so in Microsoft, as opposed to, I was talking a little bit yesterday about why I never put in the hours in the other sim the way the other sim being prepared. Why I never really put in the hours that I always wanted to. It just wasn't that interesting visually, you know. And say what you want, we are a visual species. In German, there's a word Spießig. Spießig means cheesy. Species. It's still a weird word. Alright, 21 miles. At 20 miles, I am going to begin our descent. Basically, I'm just going to pull the power back until we get that 500 foot per minute descent. And then I'll be happy. Making sure, of course, we're in the green arc, because if you get out of the green arc in this airplane, it's carb heat time. I don't know. Go hug the side of this island here, Little Cayman, because it's going to give us a better straight in. Little Cayman also has an airport, which we are going to go check out. see. It seems like there's a little bit of a left to right crosswind right here. Winds are 0406, so we're going to have a little bit of a right crosswind. Oh, a little bit of a left crosswind. But it's pretty much straight at us, so it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not a big deal anyway, it's 6 knots, but and that's right with. I always like, two things I like to do. I like to check not only the weather, but what the forecast is. So I'll check the METAR and the TAF. And let's say the METAR is telling me 060 at 6 knots. And the TAF is telling me 240 at 15 gusting 20. Alright. So that will lead me to ask, do I trust that METAR? Because a METAR is a moment in time. You know, and they're not gonna, you know, they're not going to use a METAR if it's, you know, if they get in a row, you know, if it's really windy out of the south and they get a METAR that reads, you know, 5 knots out of the north, they're not gonna just put that up and be like, okay, that's what the weather is. They're smarter than that. At least I think so. You know, so I'm sure that the METAR will be checked to make sure it's accurate with the prevailing weather. But if the prevailing weather is the opposite of what the forecast was, you know, or what the forecast is, then I start to wonder about that METAR. You know, it could be that that's really what it is, but you should be on alert for it changing. It's not, you know, in weather conditions like this, it's not a big deal. But in, you know, instrument weather, or if you're expecting instrument weather, or if instrument weather is the last thing you're expecting, these are important, you know, details. It's always important to check the weather in terms of how it is versus what it was forecast to do. And if you're getting weather that is drastically different, then, and there's the little airport on Little Cayman. If the weather is drastically different than what was forecast, then it's time to start asking yourself whether you trust that weather. Particularly if it's getting worse than forecast. If it's getting better, hey, cool. But if you're expecting, like, okay, you know, clouds are going to roll in late in the afternoon, might get a light shower, and all of a sudden they're reporting, you know, cumulus buildups and thunderstorms and gusty weather, especially if you're seeing gusts. I mean, if you start seeing gusty winds, that's when I would start thinking to myself, okay, are we going to get thunderstorms? You know, so important to be observant of the weather. and not only be observant of the weather in a static sense, but in the sense of what is it doing? What is it doing versus what was forecast? Which way is it trending? Temperature dew point spread is a big one. Cayman Brac traffic, Cessna 4753 X-ray, 10 miles to the west and down runway 9er, Cayman Brac. Particularly, there we go, it's right there. I see it. Temperature dew point is a big one. So if your temperature, if your temperature dew point spread in Celsius, temperature, if it's less than 5 degrees, you can expect what the FAA refers to as obstructions to visibility. Meaning fog, clouds, etc. And okay, I'm thrilled to know that. Thank you. Mixture rich. And the other thing is you want to check with that Cayman Brac traffic, Cessna 4753 X-ray, 7 mile final runway 9er, Cayman Brac. The other thing you want to check with that is how is it trending? So it could be 6 degrees difference, right? So it could be like, let's say you've got temperature 11 dew point 05. That's 6 degrees, so it's close to that 5 degree number. But it's outside of it, so you should be okay. Should be okay. This is just ballpark stuff. But what you want to know, what I would want to know is, what was that number an hour ago? Was it temperature 14 dew point 3? It was 9 degrees difference, and now it's 6 degrees difference? Cayman Brac traffic, Cessna 4753 X-ray, 5 mile final runway 9er, Cayman Brac. You know, because that difference there is getting, I'm going to put the car beat on, that difference is getting smaller. Which tells me, in all likelihood, the weather is getting worse. Alright. Turn our landing light on. Do what we didn't do yesterday. Mixture rich. Carb heat is on. Seatbelts are secure. And I'm going to start slowing the airplane down. And you can see we're a little bit off to the right now, so that confirms what I expected, which was the left-hand crosswind. A little bit of a left-hand crosswind, not a big one. Alright, 3 miles, just under 1,000 feet, so add some energy to the equation. I'd also like to add a second notch flaps. Good on the Pappy, even though that Pappy is for bigger airplanes than me. So I'm looking for about I'm looking for about a 300 to 400 foot per minute descent. I don't want anything more than that. And you might think that's not very much, but guess what? This airplane's not going very fast over the ground. So, add a little power. Flaps are set, carb heat is on, mixture is rich. Runway looks clear. Airspeed is good. Feel that little bit of a left crosswind. Very, very pleased right now. Power back a little bit. And power's out. Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm gonna lean the mixture. Put the carb heat in. Definitely gonna open the window. Because it is hot down here. I'll stay on center line of the runway. To a turn-off point. Not too bad of a landing. I was very, very pleased with that approach. And I think, you know, aviation saying is don't come around for no reason. And look, this is a Cessna 152. It's a VFR day. You know, light winds. We should make a nice landing out here, but guess what? Nobody gives it to you. Cayman Brac traffic, Cessna 4753 X-rays, clear the runway. Nobody gives it to you. Right? So, you should make a nice landing on a day like today. But you still have to execute. And what we did was, we planned our descent well in advance. We followed that plan, and that plan worked out. And it put us in a position, and the expression that I'm talking about is that a good landing comes from a good approach, and that's absolutely true. But we did everything right. We did everything right. We planned it well. We executed it, and yes, should we have a good landing in this airplane on a day like today? Yes. It doesn't mean it's just going to happen. Alright, apply the toe brakes, mixture idle, cut off, throttle is idle, carb heat's cold, flaps are up. Set the parking brake, turn our lights off, turn our avionics off. Before we turn the mags off. Mags off. Master and battery switches off. And there we go. So, oh, look at that. How cool is that? See those birds? Huh. That's one I haven't seen this in before. That is really cool. And look at this. You see this on a lot of taxi charts. Birds in the vicinity of the airport. Dawn and dusk. But we planned it well and we executed it, and that's just very, very satisfying to me. It really is. So let's take a look now. If I can get my... I don't know if I can get my... I don't know if I can get my joystick working here, because it is flashing. Generally when things are flashing, that means they're not working. Well, let's give it a try, see what happens. So I'd really like to take a look around this airport with you guys, but it might not work. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. Let's go back here. Let's try one more combination of batteries. Somebody taking off. I'm afraid that the airport tour is going to have to wait, unfortunately, because my joystick is not working. There's not a whole lot to see, obviously. It's a small airport, but I love little details like this. Yeah, I mean, to me, this type of, and you always have these transportation containers in the Caribbean. They're everywhere. It's really kind of funny. But a nice little rendering and a fun, fun airport. I think it's a neat place. I think it's a neat area. And those takeoff and landing sounds must be from FS Realistic. But yeah, anyway, nice looking airport. We had a good approach, I think, and it was a fun flight for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.